going to be contaminating your whites with the darks. So I'm going to set this aside. Oops, I just lost it. Okay. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start painting. And how I do this, let's see here. I'm going to do this petal that's right in here. My computer's telling me I have a low battery. And what I do is I come in here. I need to get the right kind of brush because that brush isn't going to hold much water. I'm getting around. And kind of, this is the size 8. And what I do, and you're going to hear me say this over and over again. Let the water do the work. It's called watercolor. And using clean water, I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to wet this one little section here. This one little section. Now, we want this to set back here. So we're going to make this darker. And on your black and white picture, you can see where it's darker down in here. So what you're going to do, and we're going to let the water do the work, we're just going to, see how I'm just touching, just barely tapping this. And see how the water's kind of doing its own little thing here? I'm not pushing down this brush. I'm not, let me find something. I'm not doing this. I'm just barely touching that and letting the water do the work. And now I've set that petal down into there. Now, this is the first layer. We'll probably do 2 or maybe even 3 layers in some places. But can you see the water did the work here? This whole petal is a little bit darker all over, so let's just go, because there's a little white lip there. I'm going to just, now see, I just kind of come along here. Make that a little darker. Now I'm just barely touching this. I'm not, another thing too, paper towels. We didn't get paper towels. Okay, I'm going to just kind of take some of this out a little bit here. Get a little more. Let the water do the work. Now I'm rinsing my brush. I'm rinsing my brush and I'm dabbing it on this paper towel. That way I don't get too much water on this. But that has now made this petal kind of sit back into its little recess here. Now we're going to go over this again and make this what I call push this as a little bit darker down here. For now, we're going to let this dry. Now, next little rule is we're going to work on another petal here, but we are not going to work on the petal that's sitting next to this petal, because if we do, the water is going to run together and you're going to have a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this little petal over here. Now I've got a big shadow. Work on this petal here. And again, what I'm going to do is come in here and I am going to wet the whole petal. Now, the more careful you are about staying in the lines, or, the more precise this is going to look. If you're not worried about staying in the lines and just want a more watery look, you don't have to worry about that. You can do it that way. And that's something you're going to learn as you work with watercolor what your style will be and what you like. Now again, I'm going to take my darks. Now there's a little fold right here. It kind of comes back into here. But I'm just going to get the water off my brush here. That's sitting up here because it's going to roll down and make a mess. I'm just going to come in here. And I'm just barely touching this. I'm not pushing on this brush hardly at all. I want the water to do this. I want the water to make its little pretty swirls and stuff. I want the water to make some interesting little gadgets in this. Let's see, this petal is over that petal. So I'm gonna, don't try that. Don't use the eraser on wet. But this petal comes over here. So I didn't have that on my, but again, I wiped the paint off and then I got water and I was using this because I want the light white to stay around the edges because that's going to make that petal stand out or come forward. And I'm just going to, now I'm not pushing hard on my brush. I'm just trying to bring this forward just a little bit to bring this forward. Now there's a fold that's right in here. It comes right along this line here and into here. And it's darker at the tip here. I'm just using the very little end of my brush here. This comes out like this. I'll put this on here. Make this petal come forward. It's kind of a fold that comes in like this. I'm going to use my paper towel as a blotter. Making this. And then see how I'm just working around this petal. Now this is going to set that petal back. We'll work on this little guy here later on. I just kind of want to get a nice soft transition here until we get this to go like this later. Now, we're going to leave this petal alone. We're not going to do one of these petals that are sitting next to it because you're going to have water running into each petal. So what I'm going to do is go over to now this little petal here. And I'm going to put, nope, because it's touching here. So let's go clear up here to this petal. And use your clean water when you put this water down. Don't use the water that you've been rinsing your brush in because you'll have color in your white area and you do not want that. And again, I'm going to get my darks and I'm going to set it right down in here. If you look at your black and white, you can see there's dark down in here. Now see, I'm letting the water do the work. See what it's doing? I'm not doing anything here. Let that water do that. It's watercolor. It's not oil and it's not acrylic. So let the water do this. It's making its cool little runs. Now I rinsed my brush. I wiped it in my paper towel and I'm just going to kind of guide it up around the edge of this petal here. Get a little more paint on my brush. just barely set that in there and let the water do the work. Rinsing my brush, wiping it in the paper towel. I'm just going to kind of guide it a little bit. You want the water to do the work. You do not want to be taking that brush and making that paint, the brush push the paint. We want the water to push the paint. There we go. Okay, we've got that petal, that petal. We'll find another one here where it's not touching. Again, your clean water. And this little petal is like a little dip there, so we want to make sure. Get this nice and wet. Make sure you use your clean water. I keep trying to stick this brush in the dirty water, and we don't want to do that. Pull that down into here. Nice dark areas down in there. I take my paint now, and I'm just gonna, again, I'm not pushing on this brush. I'm just gonna set that color in here and let that water do the work. See how the water does the work? You don't want to be doing the water's work. I'm just going to set that down in there. Let that come out. That kind of comes up along this petal. Look at your reference photo. See where that dark kind of comes up into here. I've got kind of a shadow that's coming here. Again, very lightly on your brush. Now I'm going to rinse the paint out of my brush. I'm going to hit my paper towel, and then I'm going to kind of just manipulate this a little bit. I've got some more darks down here. Again, I'm going to just set this in here. Let the water do the work. Let the water do the work. Now be kind of careful here, because this little petal that kind of dips down here, that is darker than this here. So we want to keep this a little dark, but you want to make sure that it doesn't get too dark around here. But see how letting the water do the work here? Because you want these, you don't want it to be all just one color. You want this to be swirly. You want it to have some interesting depth in there, and you want it to have some, and then now I've noticed that, well, let's see, yeah, it does do that. This petal actually comes down into this petal. What? Nope, we're good. Nope, this petal here. So what we're going to do is this, I didn't put it in, when I drew it, I didn't see this. So this little petal here is kind of standing here on its own. So I'm going to take a little water. If you see on your black and white photo there, there's just a little there. And I'm just going to set, set a little dark here. Now this is kind of dry here, but I still left a little bit of a line there, so that there, because this petal is just kind of just sitting there on its own. It kind of has a little bit that's going out here, but that's something I'm going to teach you to fix with the gouache when we're done. Okay, let's find another petal that's not touching another petal. We'll do this little guy right here. Now this one I'm using the Prang set. The next one that I'm going to be doing, I'll be using the Payne's Gray. And again, I don't want you to touch your color until we have this all done. I know you're going to want to cheat and put some color in there, but we're not doing that till this is totally done in your values. Now this petal's lighter than some of these other places, so I don't want a whole lot of paint on this one, but I still want a little line here, just kind of making this dark. And again, I'm letting the water do the work. We don't want a lot of paint on this one. If we just think we need it later, we can go back. But I'm just trying to get this. Again, I rinsed my brush. I wiped it in the paper towel. And I'm just bringing this out a little bit. Now, sometimes a little bead of water will be sitting here. Make sure you get those off because they'll come down and sneak up on you and come into your painting and it'll just go boom, and then you're going to be really unhappy. So when you rinse your brush out, make sure you get that blob of water off the metal. It's not doing anything. Now see, this one's not as dark as some of these other petals, so I didn't put very much dark on that. I'm going to go in here and do this little bit right here. Again, use your clean water, not your dirty water. See here, I've got this blob of water on the metal here. Oh, I forgot which petal I was doing. Again, and let the water do the work. Just a little bit of paint in here. There's probably too much paint on my brush. So that's too dark, so I'm going to go in here with my paper towel and I'm just going to blot it a little bit. And get that little guy off there. This is harder in here in these little spaces, so just take your time. We're in no hurry. We're not having a race. You can stop this video at any time and go back over it, replay it. Take your time. We're not having a race. You're not going to paint this probably sitting down in one session. I'm probably going to stop here in a little bit just because that's what we need to do. Now I forgot which petal I was painting. Okay, here we go. Again, let the water do the work. Rinsing my brush, wiping the water off, and then just barely pushing this out. Got that one there. I'll let that dry. Okay, I am going to stop this video, stop my process. I want to get this really dry. On watercolor, you can use a blow dryer on it. On acrylics or oils, you do not want to use a blow dryer. You do not want to use a heat on acrylics or oil. And you do not want to set your acrylic or oils outside in the Arizona sun. Watercolor, you can do that, but not oils or acrylics. I'm going to stop this now. Edit. Hello, ready to start again. My paper is totally dry. It's set overnight because I didn't get back to this right away. I also went ahead and worked on using just the Payne's Gray and filling in my dark shadows. And that's what that looks like. That needs a little more work on it, and we'll do that later. But now we're going to go back to this one, and we're going to work on some of these other petals. Again, we're going to work one petal at a time. I'm going to wet it with clear water. Grab my color out of my little paint box here. Remember, this was the red, the blue, and a little bit of orange. And I'm just going to set this color in here right around the edge here. Let the water do the work. Remember, let the water do the work. We've got a little bit of a dip in here. That's farther away, so it's gonna be a little darker here. This petal is behind this petal, so we want that a little darker there. And I'm just going to use this and get some clean water, a paper towel, and do a blot. And just work this in just a little bit. Let the water do the work, let the water do the work. Again, now I'm not working on a petal that's close to that one because I don't want my water playing games with each other from the petals, because it usually doesn't turn out well. And then again, I'm just setting this color in here. See how the water's doing the work? I'm not doing a whole lot. Just placing that in here. Rinse my brush, dab it on my paper towel, and I'm just barely touching that, hoping it'll pull into the white. It's probably a little too much. I'm going to dab some of this off. But it looked okay. I didn't want it fighting with these areas in here that are really dark. Rinsing my brush, dabbing it on the paper towel, and coming from this direction. Oops, you can't see it. Coming in from this direction and just trying to pull that out just a little bit. Sorry, I don't have music or something like that, but maybe next time. Trying to learn how to do this video protection is quite a challenge for me, but I'll get it. It's just like, I know this is probably going to be hard for some of you to do, but just keep trying. You'll eventually get it. And you know, you're not going to have a masterpiece the first time out. If you are, you should have been doing this a long time ago. That's that little petal that's kind of tucked in there. I'm going to make him a little bit darker because he's pretty dark in the reference photo. You can tell when this dries, it buckles up, and then when it dries, it lays flat. So that's a way to tell when your paper is all the way dry. The water did the work on that. He just ran right along where he was supposed to go. Just going to help it out just a little bit there. I'm off a little bit here on my pattern, but like I said, it'll work. When we're done, I'll show you how to go in with your gouache and fix things. So if you do sort of mess it up a little bit, you know it's not all is lost. I don't think the art world likes it when you fix it with gouache, because then you can't say it's watercolor. It's got to be mixed media, but I don't care. This petal is pretty light. Gonna have a little competition here with the cat. He's like 17 years old and probably needs to go to kitty heaven, but the vets say that he has quality of life still. He's eating and he's drinking, so he still gets to stay with us, even though he probably doesn't feel very well. But he does do a lot of complaining, so I'm sorry about that. He'll start howling probably pretty soon. There's a little dip in here. We'll just try and get that in here. And this kind of comes up this way, so we'll see if we can't accommodate that here. That's one reason why I picked flowers or these roses, because it's kind of just an exercise program here. I know some people don't like to do flowers, but this is probably one of the easiest things to do. And it gives you a good exercise on how to create modeling, how to take a flat surface and make it look dimensional. I don't have a lot of water on there, so it just kind of stuck there. I'll put a little more water in here. You guys, I'll have an email address up here, or some of you may have my phone number. If you need to call me, I know sometimes I don't answer my phone and I don't even look at my phone, but if you need to talk to me or have a question, email me, text me on the Facebook page there. I'll try to keep an eye on it. If you have any questions on any of this, talk to me on the phone. If you don't mind dogs, you can come by the house. I do have little dogs, and they love people most of the time. I've got one that'll bite you, but we'll be careful. Oops. There a little more. I'm doing one of the hardest petals and you couldn't see most of it. This petal just looks really too rounded. I'm going to fix him a little bit here. Okay, now this petal was totally dry, and I shouldn't have done that, but I needed to wet the whole petal, or you're going to get these little lines in it, so I just re-wetted the whole petal. Trying to make this petal here not look so rounded. I'm going to do a little bit of, it kind of helps a little bit. I have the fan running, so that's kind of helping dry this a little bit here. And if you have to, you can like set your watercolor outside to dry. Use a blow dryer. Just be careful if it is really wet. This painting isn't really wet. Just be careful and don't splatter your paint with the blow dryer. I'm going to try and make this come out. We're just going to put a little bit of color in here. Rinse my brush. I'm going to pull that out just a little bit. Just put a little bit along here so that it looks like that little petal is curling back under. Let's see, I think this is getting dry. I can see I've got some stuff going on here that I don't really like, but maybe I'll just save that and we'll fix it maybe when I get my gouache out, and I can show you how to do that. It's this area here. If you notice, it's not quite like the picture, but this will be a good area I can work on, or you can leave it the way it is. It looks okay, but I might work on this area just because I can. Looks like a good candidate for a gouache fix-up. I'm just barely touching this. I'm not doing a lot of paint stroking, or paintbrush strokes. Just kind of rinse my brush, come from the white side, and just barely pull that out, and that'll help that blend in a little bit. Now, I'm not going totally by the reference photo here, because in these little places it's kind of hard to even tell where I'm going. I'm just trying to make this look like there's petals in here and not touch other places that are already wet. When you're done getting all your dark values in, I want you to take a picture of this with your phone and set it to black and white mode. That's how you can really check to see if your your petals that are coming towards you are lighter, if the petals that are recessing back, the part of the petals that are recessing back. You get a black and white photo of your work. It really helps you to determine that. Now, I'm pretty much done with my first layer on this rose. So I can kind of tell there's some places I need to go back in and what I call push it a little bit. And that's what I'm going to do here. Now, when you do this, remember to wet your whole entire petal. Even though I'm not going to be painting out here, you still want to have this painted. And I should have let this dry a little bit, but I'm not going to do that. We'll see if we can do this. But what I'm going to do is just come in here, add a little more color into some of these recessed areas. Now I'm not going to paint out here, so I want this to blend in a little bit, so I'm kind of coming from the wider, lighter areas and kind of just pulling it out a little bit. If you don't wet the whole petal, it's going to cause some issues. So what happens is it creates a little line around where the water was sitting, and to keep that line from forming, you need to wet the whole petal so that it all kind of blends in again. I think I'm going to stop on this one for a little bit now, and I'll go over to this one. This is the Payne's Gray and the blue. I'm changing my palette now to my Payne's Gray palette while I'm letting that other one dry. Let's see where I can push this a little bit. Again, same process here. I am going to wet the whole petal. So you can tell the outline on this is way too dark, but maybe we'll make it a darker pink rose so it doesn't show up so much. But letting the water do the work. Going from the lighter and reaching into the dark, because if you try to come here and pull out, you're going to pull way too much color out and you're not going to be happy with it. A little. And I will be having some lessons, hopefully this summer. They'll probably be on Saturday and Sunday mornings at the clubhouse. I haven't quite worked everything out with them yet. I've got permission to do it. And I'll probably, like, in the mornings have some classes. But I want you to get some basics down first. That way you're not wasting your money when you come to the classes. And you have a pretty much good idea where you're going with this and what I expect from you. Okay. Trying to make this look like it's got a little, oops, that's too much. Wow. I'll tone that down a little bit. Make that petal kind of look like he's coming out and then back. Again. When you put your color in, and don't do it yet though, we'll be basically doing the same thing with the color, you know. We're trying to determine we're gonna, you know, use the same concept of lights and darks, darker colored paint in those recessed areas, and then wash it out on the ends. This is darker here, so I'm gonna, and if you can leave that little white edge on there, I could do that on this one. I don't think I could do that on the other one because I wasn't paying attention. There is also, I was going to tell you and I forgot to tell you this last time, there's something you can get called masking fluid. It probably would have been easier to use that on this, but for the first time out, the masking fluid really helps you to cheat a lot, and I want you to learn how to leave the white on there instead of depending on the masking fluid. You can get masking fluid in several different, this is this one. This you put on with a brush. Once upon a time at Hobby Lobby, you could use this in your 40% coupon, but now they don't have them, so this is a little bit expensive. You use a brush to put this on, and you put this on where you want your white to stay. And then there's also these little pins that you can put your masking fluid on with. So I might show you how to use that when we go to put some leaves on here. But that's what we're going to do for now. Whoops. I probably shouldn't have done this because this petal is not dry, so hopefully it's dry enough that this won't run into there. If it does, it's a good example of what I just told you not to do, and why. I want this darker down in here, so. And I'm gonna, since I have my Payne's Gray here, I'm just putting totally Payne's Gray in there, because that was really gonna set that in there. And I know you're gonna go, I can use black. Don't use black. Black is bad. Black just stops your eye. Payne's Gray is okay because it's kind of a blue color. Okay, I'm not getting too much run in with this petal here that's still wet. But see how that just really set that in? And I'm gonna go in here and do a little bit more of that. Again, I'm gonna wet my whole petal down here because I want this to work, the whole thing. Using just Payne's Gray now. Going in here and setting these. Putting these back just a little bit more. I'm trying to get a little bit of symmetry here too. We've got dark here, dark here, dark here, and there's kind of no dark over here. So I'm gonna just kind of keep the darks evened out so that it looks balanced. And the doors are gonna start squeaking here and shutting and slamming. So just bear with me here. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good there. I'm gonna put a little more down in here. And I'm gonna wet this whole thing down because I don't want lines on my petal. Those of you who are using the little paint box, you'll be using red, or you can maybe use a peach color. I'll let you decide that. There's no pink in your set, so, and you can use light washes of red. That's going to be okay too. And that's probably what I'll try to do. But on this one, I'm going to probably use a rose madder or a rose type color. Okay, I think I need a little more dark down in here. And I'm going to probably have to stop this because YouTube will scream at me because it's too long. they want me to pay for this, and I can't do that right now, so I guess that's, I'm going to probably stop. I'm going to probably work on this a little bit in here, and then we'll come back and see you later. We'll let you go. Bye.